Hi there, I'm Miguel Nems, the editor-in-chief of Skift Meetings, and in this episode of the Skift Meetings podcast, I get to speak with Colja Dams, the president and CEO of VOK Dams Worldwide, a global live marketing agency started by his father in 1971. Colja is passionate about driving innovation in communications and discovering potential in new technologies. Since joining the company in 1997, VOK Dams has successfully branched out internationally with currently 300 employees at 19 different offices in 12 countries. In our conversation, we talk about things like how the industry has shifted since the pandemic and the current capacity challenges. We talk about why Colja favors agile and direct collaborative approaches with clients over a traditional pitching approach. We talk about how sustainability and technology innovation go hand in hand. And we talk about why human nature and a campfire gene means that we will always favor in-person gatherings. We talk about how social media and content saturation makes live events even more desirable today. And we talk about the technological evolution and emphasizing the role of AI in modern event management. Finally, we talk about Colja's vision for truly hybrid events featuring augmented reality technology. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation, and don't forget to check out the other episodes of the Skift Meetings podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Skift Meetings podcast. Today, I am delighted to have with me the CEO of VOK Dams, Colja Dams. Colja, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Colja, we've known each other for a few years, but like with every guest, I'd really love to start by your introduction. Tell us a little bit about your world, how you started in events, and I think you have a pretty unique journey, so I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, I was basically born into this industry because my father started the agency for events at a time where there was no real name for events or events management. So I was basically brought up in an events agency. So I spent my entire childhood joining my father to attend events, trade shows and stuff. So it basically came naturally that after going to university, I started out joining the agency. That was 27 years ago.
So your father, if I'm not mistaken, came from a photography background, and the agency kind of grew out of that. And could you take us through kind of the evolution of the agency, also kind of what it looked like when you came in and what it looks like today?
Absolutely. My father, like you said, came from photography, and he started out doing multi-vision shows together with Kodak from the US. He started a technology, soft edging slides, Kodak slides into extremely large pictures. Because at this time in the 70s, if you want to put something on a big screen, you could only do 35 millimeters film. And producing film was extensively expensive and took lots of time. So therefore, this was a solution to basically combine lots of slides to one enormous image. And this is what my father started doing. And this is why I spend lots of time cleaning little slides and putting them in Kodak carousels at this time. And then after we produced the content a lot of times, then it started out that we were being asked, could you take care of the rest as well? Like the hotel, the venues, the transport, and getting the guests there and everything. And this is how this industry came alive. And this is also, so the 70s, it was mainly trade shows. We were also the first company to introduce VCR videos into events, which sounds totally weird today, that you would show people just videotapes on little monitors and building video walls with these monitors. So this is basically where we started out with.
And that's fascinating, because we look at projection mapping and technologies like that today, and it seems so natural to have these arrays of projectors and do all these things. But to think about how much of a manual process this was and how detailed you had to be to do this 40 years ago, it's really impressive.
Absolutely. And the entire industry, so it started out with, we started working in the corporate sector, mainly for pharmaceutical industries or insurances, banks that had to gather lots of internal people driving sales or getting them on the point for new products. And then in the late 80s, it started out with really big productions in the corporate world, the first big car launches, and business became more and more international. So we started opening our first office in the US in the 90s, and then went to China in 2000. I don't even recall, but very early in the game. And this has been extremely helpful for us so that we are catering our clients worldwide.
So what does a typical VOK Dams client look like? I believe there's some automotive, there's maybe some technology. So are they big German companies that you tend to work with?
We work for big multinational companies, some of them headquartered here in Germany, some of them headquartered somewhere else in the world. The normal projects, clients approach us for turnkey solutions for bringing the entire event live. But sometimes clients also approach us just for single services like guest management or creative services or hybrid services at certain parts. But usually the clients comes with a communication challenge and ask us if we can be of help bringing this up on a stage somewhere in the world.
Love it. So when you speak to people that don't know the industry, so let's say childhood friends or I don't know, friends of family, etc., how do you explain what you do?
It's funny that you ask, because when I was a kid, I was always trying to explain in school that my father is doing direct communication to define target groups, because there was no name for it at this time. But now it's pretty easy. I'm telling everyone, or my kids tell at school, that their dad and their mom is an event manager, and then everyone gets a picture. Usually the picture is a bit more into the festival parties or concerts part, but then we'll track this back to the corporate world.
Not bad though, right? I mean, it's a little misleading, but it's still better than kind of explaining everything from scratch. So when you kind of put a VOK Dams event against a competitor event, let's say, or someone else doing an event, what's the magic? What makes a VOK Dams event different in your mind?
This is a good question. Of course, I don't get to see too many competitors' events, so I couldn't judge. But how we approach events is really to asking us and the client some basic questions to start with. Like the basic question we start out with is, what are your guests supposed to be doing or doing differently after they attended the event? And this usually starts a conversation about what is the ultimate goal of creating this event. And then we usually go in with a follow-up question. So why don't your guests do this right now without the event? To make sure what kind of obstacles are there, and to openly discuss, is the event really able to solve the challenge the client has?
Interesting. So you really try to focus on the leverage that the event has to kind of make that change. And do you use like any specific methodology or any systems in-house, or do you use other methodologies to kind of get there?
We created our own methodology on ROI, and this really helps on the way to data-driven event management. But we do believe it's extremely simple if you start with these two leading questions. So why do you invite people to join the event? So what is the core reason behind it? And that gets lots of clients thinking. And then let's see, how could this be achieved differently? just an example I just ran into the other week. We had a client approach us, and he was looking forward to bring all his salespeople from all over the world together to their anniversary, their 100 years anniversary, to London. And now from our question was, so what is the real goal? So what do you like these independent sales agents to do differently afterwards? And the client thought a bit about it and said, I want them to take our product and go out there and feature our product more than the competitors' products that lots of these independent sales agents also have in their portfolio. And so we ticked off this box and then went right into it, asking continuous questions. So why aren't they doing it right now? And then the meeting kind of stalled, and the client said, we don't really know. He said, so then we love to do this big event, a couple hundred people coming to London, but let's look into this first. And we do have a sister company that is just focusing on consulting, and say, okay, why don't we send them in and interview a group of your independent sales agents and find out what's happening. So the client agreed to it. And after 3 months, we found out they do not take their, they do not sell their products of our client before other products, or feature some of the competitors' products first, because the competitors provide sales collaterals in their local languages. So now our client only had English and Chinese as for the sales collaterals, but not other local languages like Thai, Vietnamese, Korean, and Spanish, and other languages. And then we told the client, okay, so now we found one of the reasons why, and this is not, the event is not going to solve this. So why don't you take an AI translation and translate all your collaterals in the local languages? And the CEO just sent me a letter and thanking me that even though we were planning this anniversary event, which we ended up doing in a different scale, but we solved their sales issue that they had in a totally different perspective before going into the event.
Fascinating example. I think that brings out that power of events, but also the power of asking why and determining the objectives before you start to plan an event. And just out of curiosity, at the event, you said it ran kind of differently, but at the event, did you have translation and sort of localization because of these findings that you were able to get?
Absolutely. So what we did is we were approaching everyone in their local languages, and we had AI translation for everyone on site into, I think, 27 different languages.
Fascinating. So wanted to ask about, this kind of client relationship. Obviously, what we hear is that some lead times are quite short at the moment. Budgets are under a lot of pressure. And so I'm sure negotiations with clients, I don't know if you can share if they're different or similar than they were kind of pre the pandemic. And I wanted to ask you this question, which is, when do you say no to clients? What is it that makes you say, I'm sorry, but we can't do an event? Or are there any kind of situations where you have to say something like that?
Yes, we run into these situations quite often as of the moment right now. We do get lots of RFPs, and we only have limited capacity. So right now, we usually don't pitch. So clients pick and choose their agency, maybe do a quick beauty contest, and then go with the agency of choice. And like you mentioned, the short lead-up times lead to situations. We just had a call for a client who wants to bring together 3,500 people before Christmas. and I just don't have the capacity to do that. And even if I would have the capacity, going into finding venues still available would be a nightmare. And then we tell the client that is not possible. So we cannot do this. And a lot of clients also approach us sometimes and say, okay, we do have to do a bidding process for this project. And then we say, okay, because you're a valued client, I would get the capacity for the project, but I cannot spend capacity right now that I don't have on pitching processes. And then a lot of times the client said, okay, then we can't work together. But then they come back 2 weeks later after they find out that this is the situation in the market and that they won't find someone, and then they award the project as a single sourcing. So we do see this quite often happening right now.
And this is all a relatively new occurrence? Is it a, sort of a compressed market? You're very kind of busy and kind of a post-pandemic kind of marketplace?
Yeah, I believe we are still in the post-pandemic market. So the market, there are studies that show that 75% of all agencies are gone over the pandemic. Then after the pandemic, there is a drive for live events. So people want to do more live events, while the single client will do less events than they did pre-COVID, but they're spending more budget on the events they're doing, and that is hitting a smaller agency market, and that just comes to the situation where there are lots more RFPs out there than we can take on capacity-wise.
Okay. Sort of a good problem to have. Not a great problem to have, but obviously if you could pick and choose your clients, that's always a good place to be. So I was at IMEX America a month ago, let's say now, and everything I heard from exhibitors on the show floor was incredibly positive. You know, think hotels were being booked up, destinations were looking really good for the next few years. And it's exciting, the energy around it, it's great. But I also see kind of uncertainty in the markets. I see corporates tightening their budgets. You just told me, there's this kind of, less agencies in the market. And I'm kind of thinking, is this going to plateau? Where do you see the next kind of year or the next kind of 2 or 3 years? Because I feel like this can't keep growing forever, right? People can't keep booking events, certainly for the next few years forever. Do you see there being sort of a downturn eventually, or how do you see this playing out?
I believe what's going to happen, there will be more players in the market. So after more players in the market, of course, will relax the market a bit. But I believe that after the post-pandemic run for live events, we are about to have the next run into live events around the corner. And this is due to AI, because AI helps me to produce content almost effortless and budgetless. And I do need this because the newest figures say that I'm spending an average of 0.4 seconds on a video on TikTok. So these 0.4 seconds, you can imagine how many videos you go through content-wise in TikTok. So now the former social media becomes entertainment. So people usually do not produce their own content, they're just consuming. Now we have all this bunch of AI stuff. We have social media becoming entertainment, and this will create live events in the future to be that what social media used to be about. So getting people together and meeting. And therefore we believe, because it's the only true means of communication, the only authentic means of communication is live, that we are hitting another run into live events while we're going more digital at the same time. And so I have an extremely positive outlook for the future.
Very interesting. So if I can summarize what you're saying, the kind of extra focus on social media and that sort of entertainment and oversaturation of social media will actually mean people look at events for community and for information where they used to maybe do that through social media. So, I mean, obviously that means more business, but does that also mean new audiences potentially in this area where they used social media for those kind of things?
Absolutely. And the pandemic showed us, and all the studies being published before the pandemic, we always thought events, people decide to go to an event or decide an event was worth going there because of the amazing content, the great venues, the amazing food and stuff. No. People decide depending on serendipity, a word I actually didn't know existed before the pandemic. So people want to meet other people, and meeting other people, also people from the brand, and meeting them and taking out of this more coincidental encounter something new, something that transforms them personally. And I believe this is the magic that we have to look into. And this is how we are also have to create like low threshold opportunities to really get together people. And this also pays into communities and all the opportunities that come up with this.
Really interesting. So it's a kind of a prediction of the development. Now, I know you're speaking at Eventec Live, I think tomorrow or the day after, right? So the next few days will be in London. You've always been very interested in technology, and I believe you also have an AI division now in Barcelona, right? Your AI studio. Tell us a little bit about your look at how you see technology, because I know there's a number of agencies and destinations that sort of shied away from technology, particularly during the pandemic, but you didn't. You've always been very engaged with technology. Where did that start and how has it developed?
Yeah, it's a bit because I'm a geek and I love new technologies and playing around with it. And especially if you're working on high profile projects, you need to make sure that whatever you're using there has been tested. And an agile approach is there extremely helpful. So we basically put together a sandbox team, and that we gathered from everyone who was skilled and wanted to work on this part. And for some reason, they didn't choose Wuppertal, Germany, but preferred to go to Barcelona instead. And this is where we put everyone together, because there's so many developments. If you just take it from the graphical design momentum, you used to have 2D designers, 3D designers, and now you have AI designers that are creating pictures, that are creating cinematic photographs in just putting in text. And this is amazing capabilities there that will be the future in lots of parts.
So could you take me through an example? Because I mean, I've experimented with Midjourney and other image creators. How are you using this for your work?
The we can AI has so many fields that you can go into. We just languages is one opportunity. Sustainability, bringing it together in these parts. Like an example, 85% of all the carbon footprint of an event is usually travel from the guests to the event and back. Now, the obvious solution is choosing the most optimized destination where the venue is, where everyone goes to. And therefore, we developed an AI technology as an API to Google Maps that when you just load up the 5,000 attendees, it gives you what the most optimized point on sustainable travel to and from the event would be. And so you have a basis for your decision. But the entire process from ChatGPT helping you in project management phases, creating a whole new workflow, to visualization. You can, from simple mood boards to creating stock pictures, the exact way you like them. It is amazing what you can do there, but it takes some time until you get into it. And there are so many moments like being on a call right now. I could have the AI focus my eyes on the camera all the time and make it a lot more engaging than me just speaking in these parts. And I have lots of friends who keep asking me, but how could I use AI? There is one very simple thing. After you started doing this at home, if you have little kids, my recommendation, start with Midjourney or take DALL-E or any other text-to-picture program and pick a free one and start doing coloring pages for your kids. And I'm doing this with my little daughter, and she just tells me she wants a ferry there, a mermaid, and a bus, and a castle, and a submarine. And then you just put this in, and you create a coloring picture exactly up to the needs of the kid. And this is amazing after you experience with this, seeing the potential that comes out of it.
Absolutely. I've been experimenting with quite a few of the image generation and even the video, text to video, I think is really fascinating as kind of the next level. But how are your clients receiving this? Because assuming that you're using it at different stages of the projects, to visualize, to create the graphics, etc., do they know it's AI? Do they question it? How is that kind of interaction happening with clients?
No, we are very transparent about it. So, for example, we just launched an AI hotline for an event because the client, it's an event happening in a few weeks and with 7,000 people. And the hotline is an AI hotline where you just dial up and then a virtual character says, "Hi, I'm Chrissy, your event hotline. Ask me whatever question you like." And we can cover 95% of all the questions of this hotline. And it's not this boring, if you want to do this, press 1 or 2 or whatever. And it really works. And it saves so much time. So therefore, clients love it. Also, simple things like having the first draft for a save the date. You just load up the last 10 save the dates, and you get a pre-written document that makes it a lot faster to go into that and change it instead of starting out from scratch. So I believe AI and together with our clients makes it more productive, faster, and more creative. And by the end of the day, it makes it more fun because AI is usually killing the processes that are extremely time consuming and not much fun. And therefore, I do believe that AI will come into every part of the workflow of an event manager in the future.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Going back to your point about not bidding for projects, do you see an AI doing your bids for you?
There are actually some cool tools like Tome AI that prepares the entire PowerPoint for you. But the situation we are having as of now, I don't see this really is happening. But we do, of course, the AI needs to get their knowledge from somewhere. So the like ChatGPT basically crawled the web, and this is the body of knowledge that it's referring to bring something together. So what we see the future is we need to create an AI that is the event guest. And I believe we will be seeing a lot more robots in the audience in the future, monitoring what is happening up on stage, but what is also happening around and how the people are feeling, what their emotions are, and how to create them. And I believe we will be learning a lot more how to create events that are truly engaging and get people to do whatever our task was for them to do after the event.
Very interesting. What about the metaverse? Are you a believer Or do you think it's something that's not really going to work for events? And I mean the metaverse is in kind of VR, with goggles or however it works out.
Yeah, this is exactly what you're saying. I'm a true believer of the metaverse, and I'm absolutely positive the metaverse is going to be the future of hybrid events. And no matter if we call it metaverse or spatial computing or AR, VR, XR, or whatever, we are still missing a certain technology trigger, because the glasses right now are still a bit brick-like you put in front of your face. And if you have a brick in front of your face, that is not engaging for conversations with someone else who has a brick in front of their face. But Apple, with the Vision Pro coming out next year, I'm absolutely believing that they will change the industry. They brought us the smartphone and the watch. And if you think about it, the smartwatch also evolved in these parts. And as of now, I'm not using the iPhone #1 anymore. And it became a lot more slicker and better. And I believe at a certain point, we have prescription lenses on normal glasses that help you to experience the real world and a virtual world at the same time. And this will create true hybrid events, what we are looking for.
So you're suggesting the experience would be more of an augmented reality, but very engaged with the event and the programming and everything, the networking around you will be more of a augmentation to what you're experiencing rather than an escape, is kind of what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I believe it is only the solution in bringing it together into a live setting where people can attend virtually as well. And this will get closing the gap between digital and live events. It will never get as good as a true live event. And this is why all of you listeners are definitely in the right industry, because due to the campfire gene, live events will always be the master discipline. And like in the beginning of mankind, we were all drawn to the campfire, and this campfire gene is in all of us. So I believe live events will always be there and become even more important.
So you mentioned your consultancy company. We mentioned your Barcelona design studio. And I know that in the VOK Dams group, you actually have a number of different companies, right? How many in total do you have at the moment?
16.
Okay. And is it because I believe, at least with Mr. Wolf Consulting, it's a sort of pilot project in a way where you partner and it's a separate company and you're a part owner, I guess, of the company, right? Is that how you run all of them, or is that a specific kind of situation there?
Yes, we do have like a partner setup, and usually people we're working together with, and they want to become self-employed, then we open up a company together if we have a working business model. Here, as an example, Mr. Wolf is not sure if you know where Mr. Wolf comes from. Pulp Fiction. There, at some point when they had an unfortunate accident, you may remember, they called up Mr. Wolf to fix it, and he answered the call with like, "I'm 40 minutes away, I'll be there in 20. And this is mission-driven marketing consultancy, very much based on live experiences. And this is because we've had the experience that a lot of our clients do need consulting services. And sometimes it makes more sense to have a different entity take care of the consulting services than the event production. And this is why we separated this, which used to be a former in-house unit, and made an entire team out of it. So, and they have their own offices in Berlin. Our AI studio in Barcelona just opened a few weeks ago. We do have 42 Incentive, a company mainly based on travel incentive programs, and 42 base comes from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You can tell that I've been reading some nerdy stuff when I was little, but and this is where the 42 name comes from. And then we have a few other companies that like CE and Co, which is basically on 3D creation and on event creation, very much focusing. So
fascinating. But I think you have in total about 300 people that work under you. Is that number about accurate?
yeah.
Yeah. But is this kind of structure almost a prerequisite for having a company that big, but being able to sleep at night?
Yeah, man, we are very, I like the agile approach. When I joined the company 27 years youngest in the company, and therefore at this time I called it decentralized context management. And then we just started out opening different offices in China, the US, Middle East, and other parts of the world. But we basically start doing stuff together with an amazing team. And if we have team members that have an idea and want to create a company out of it, then we usually do this.
I love the entrepreneurial spirit there when you're kind of welcome to work with other people, but create their own entities. I think that's really welcoming. But tell me a little bit about China. I mean, obviously that's somewhere you were there very early. I think you're going to celebrate your 20th anniversary. I think I saw a post about that recently. You were there very early. I'm sure that's gone through lots of different developments. Could you just take us through a little bit of that journey and what it looks like today?
We were actually one of the first Western agency in China, and right after basically it also happened with a client. More and more clients asked us to help with projects in China, mainly automotive industry. And so our team then stayed in China for one project and then did another project. And after a while, we had a team in China staying for months at a time, that we figured let's start out there. Then we started out with a joint venture in the beginning, but then experienced for our mainly Western customers, it was more important to have a purely Western agency at this time. But then in the last 20 years, it changed that we have mainly a complete Chinese team now, and we're working for more and more Chinese brands in China, or for Chinese brands entering the European or the American markets. So the market totally changed, but I'm a huge fan of China, and it's an amazing market.
Fascinating how it's become, also a place to get clients, not just deliver events for Western clients, etc. Really interesting. I also read recently that you got your ISO 2112 or 21, the sustainability certification, right? And you mentioned this before. This is quite an important thing for you.
Yeah, especially in the European Union, we have the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act coming, where every company has to fulfill certain or has to make sure that their supply chain is sustainable. And how do you do this to make sure that your supply chain is sustainable if you are sourcing large events? And therefore, the ISO 2121 is extremely helpful, because it's an international standard for sustainable event management, and gives the client a peace of mind that they can tick the box that their agency, also with all the third parties, are fulfilling what they are requested to fulfill in the supply chain due diligence.
Excellent. I think you're getting ahead of the curve there when it comes to sustainability. So very commendable. So I want to kind of go a little bit more big picture now. I want to talk a little bit about challenges in the industry and kind of big picture challenges. If you had to pick kind of a big challenge that's coming up ahead that you're getting ready for, that you're preparing at a high level. Would that be sustainability, or are there other challenges that you're kind of focused on right now?
We actually, I believe there are two challenges. One is sustainability for sure, and the other one is the digital transformation. And both challenges are never going to peak. So we started out with sustainability 20 years ago. We created the first CO2 footprint calculator online where you could roughly calculate the CO2 footprint of your event. So therefore, these both also go hand in hand. And this is, I believe, the challenge of the future, to see where do the new technologies help us to be creating even more sustainable events for the future. And these are the two major streams that we allocate manpower on to work on and to find new solutions for the future.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you combine those two and that you see those as sort of part of the same issue, I guess, or kind of complementary issues. What about, things that you'd like to see changed in the industry? I asked this question with a little bit of a joke, but if you had a magic wand, and if you could wave your magic wand and something would just change, maybe a system, a process, or anything that you see as a barrier in the industry, what would you change? What would your wish be?
This is an interesting question. I'm pretty happy with the industry, how it's running this part. And I also like the transparency and the teamwork we are having with lots of other partners, from third-party suppliers to even competitor agencies. And I believe this is what totally changed. So already my wish came true during the pandemic. It moved us all closer together. There's no every single day I do get a call from a former competitor or someone who says, I'm doing something in China, can we work together? And this is extremely going well right now. So we are working together on eye level, or sometimes even as a subcontractor for other agencies that would have never happened before. So I honestly have to say my wish already has come true.
I like it. We're making wishes, or the industry's making wishes for you come true. It's excellent. What about the future events? We've touched on this a little bit, but do you think that events will look very different in let's say 5 years' time or something like that?
I believe that events will change. And right now, with the post-pandemic situation, we still have the issue that everyone internally of a company wants to put their content out there. And therefore, a lot of times, events are packed with content. And people are not given the opportunity to really have these serendipity moments. But I do believe we will come into a new feeling that having time at an event is a luxury. And this is a luxury that I, as a brand, inviting guests to my event, I'm willing to give. And therefore, I do believe that we do see events in the future where we get the frame, but which are not packed with content, but are really giving the opportunity to have these serendipity moments. And I believe this is going to be the major change we are going to see in the future.
Do you have a vision for what that looks like? Is that sort of like an unconference kind of situation where people are given more choice? Is it more about giving people free time? How does that play out in your mind?
I believe it's all of the above. So there will be moments where you love to attend some session where you just sit down and relax and watch what's happening there. It will go to an extent to a corporate festival feeling where you just pick and choose your content. But it will also be that having a conversation will not be just in the coffee break, or that we are creating coffee breaks that really give me an opportunity to talk to other people than just to get my caffeine intake taken care of.
So really maximizing those moments to get those moments of serendipity, or to generate moments of serendipity. Okay, last question I have for you is really about the future generations or the future talent in the industry, right? I think there's I don't know if you're sensing this, but there's a bit of a gap. It's hard to attract young people into the industry. So it's a sort of a two-part question. Any advice on how to attract people, but also any advice to young people who are interested in the industry, want to kind of grow their career and build their reputation?
I believe this gap is right now in every industry, no matter where you go. Mm, my tip is, or what we can do also as an agency, we are trying to speak at universities, are supporting young people with internships and their first steps, or also taking part in an interview for their bachelor or master theses and like this. And I believe that the magic we are all feeling, if you convey this, and again, just it to students or people of every age, then we will have no problem in gathering enough people being born into this industry.
I love that idea of people being bored into it. And when people are in the industry, let's say young professionals, what's your advice for them to develop their career, to look to the future and kind of aim high?
I believe it's get into the industry as fast as possible. You also don't just go to university or to college, school, or whatever and focus just on the learning layer. Get into it hands-on, because this is where the magic is happening. And we do have programs where students can work part-time and enjoy working in the agency even during their studies. And most of these people, this is actually where our management team, most of them started out working at an agency, and quite a few of them started out working at VOK Dams even while they were going to university, before looking for their first job. And then you get the touch and feel, and you also do see if this is right for you, and then this is the best decision you can take.
I like that. You can see the progression, or how they've progressed and where they got in their career. So I think that's an excellent example. Colja, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope the listeners also enjoyed the conversation. I want to ask you the last question that I ask all our guests, which is, could you recommend somebody else who we should interview on the podcast?
First of all, I thank you very much for having me here. Well, and I have to compliment you. This is by far the best, well-prepared podcast I've been on from you asking the questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up with this question, whom I would recommend, I would go for Joe Pine. Pine and Gilmore, many of you will remember, wrote the book, The Experience Economy, 20-some years back. And he hit on, even in this book, that the next big thing after the experience economy is going to be the transformation economy. And this is exactly what we are in right now. And if you manage to get a hold of him, this would be a podcast I'm looking very much forward to here.
Excellent. We'll definitely look into it. And I know that a few people have recommended Joe Pine, so I will look and try to get him on the podcast. I've read the book and I am a fan of his work, so it would be great to have a conversation with him and explore those themes and what he's working on now, because I'm sure he's got some new ideas as well. So Colja, once again, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure talking to you, and good luck on your sessions at EventTech Live. And I will see you there hopefully over the next few days.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to seeing you in London.